They say it's in the darkest hours that a person's true self comes to light, and for David, that descent into emptiness seemed to have no end. His life unraveled thread by thread until nothing was left but the ruins of a marriage he once thought unshakable. When she walked away, suitcase clutched in her hand, she carried far more than possessions. She carried a piece of him. What remained was a hollow man, a shadow of who he had been. The silence that followed her departure was suffocating. Their home, once alive with laughter and shared dreams, felt like a mausoleum of memories. Every photograph, every trinket, every familiar scent became a cruel reminder of what had been lost. Nights and days bled into each other, indistinguishable, and sleep turned into a stranger. She haunted him in every thought. The betrayal gnawed at him relentlessly, and beneath the grief lay a constant ember of anger. How could she discard years of devotion for a fleeting fantasy? David sought escape in distraction. He threw himself into work, numbing the ache with endless meetings, deadlines, and long hours staring at an empty screen. Friends offered kind words, phrases meant to comfort, but they only skimmed the surface of his pain. He drifted through life like a ghost, scarcely recognizing the weary eyes that stared back at him in the mirror. His face was thin, his eyes vacant, the light inside him long extinguished. He was drowning, pulled under by the crushing weight of regret and abandonment. Then one day, something within him shifted, so faint it was almost imperceptible, like the first glimmer of sunrise after an endless night. Standing before the mirror, he no longer saw only a broken man but also a choice. He could surrender completely to the wreckage, or he could begin to reclaim the fragments of himself. That moment was a reckoning, painful yet clarifying. And so David chose to rebuild. He began with small steps. He joined a gym, forcing his body to move, to sweat, to feel alive again. The soreness in his muscles reminded him he still had strength left. Late-night takeout gave way to home-cooked meals that nourished not only his body but his spirit. He reached out to old friends, reconnecting with those who had known him before life fractured. Each small act was monumental, like catching hold of a rope pulling him out of the darkness. Mornings became runs through the park, the steady rhythm of his feet grounding him in the present. Afternoons were spent by the lake, meditating, the still water reflecting the calm he longed for inside. Slowly, he began to notice beauty in the simplest of things, the glow of sunlight through leaves, the melody of birdsong, the comfort of a warm cup of coffee. His career, once a burden, became a place to pour his renewed energy. Projects reignited his sense of purpose, and work transformed into a canvas where he could reshape pain into something meaningful. Creativity, buried under the rubble of heartbreak, stirred once again. David rediscovered his passion for photography. Behind the lens, the world transformed. Every click of the shutter became an act of healing, each captured moment a reminder that beauty still existed. Landscapes, faces, fleeting bursts of light. Through them, David found solace and rediscovered his voice. Piece by piece, he reclaimed himself. He no longer let the betrayal define him. Instead, he defined himself by how he rose from it. Brick by brick, he rebuilt his heart into something stronger, steadier. Then came the night everything shifted again. It was a quiet evening, one of those where time feels suspended, and the air carries a heavy stillness. David sat alone, lost in thought, when a knock echoed through the house. The sound sent a shiver down his spine. He opened the door, and there she stood. She looked different, smaller somehow, fragile, almost broken. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her once bright eyes dulled with regret. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "It wasn't what I thought. He wasn't you." The words hung in the air, delicate and raw, as though they might shatter if spoken louder. She confessed that she had chased an illusion, believing happiness lay on the other side. But reality had been merciless. What she thought she wanted had proved hollow, nothing more than a mirage that vanished upon touch. Now, standing before David, she saw the price of her choices. She begged, desperation spilling from every word. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed, clutching at herself as though trying to hold together the fragments of her life. "I made a mistake," she sobbed. "The worst mistake of my life." David stood frozen, torn between past and present as emotions collided within him. He had spent so long fighting to move forward, stitching his soul back together, And here was the very person who had shattered him, asking for another chance. Forgiveness is often said to be noble, but some betrayals carve wounds too deep to heal. The endless nights of anguish, the image of her in another's arms, the hollow ache that consumed him. It all came rushing back, threatening to drown him once more. He looked at her, the weight of history pressing down like a storm. Once he had loved her more deeply than words could capture. But love, he realized, was not always enough to repair what had been broken. Some scars are permanent, some lines once crossed can never be retraced. His heart ached for what they had lost, but he knew returning to her would mean losing himself again. With quiet resolve he spoke, "I hope you find peace." His voice was steady, though steeped in sadness she could not miss. Her sobs echoed in the night as he closed the door. That final sound marked the true end of their story. But this time, the silence that followed was not suffocating. It was different. It was not emptiness. It was possibility. A new beginning. A chance to keep moving forward, to build the life he deserved. Some endings must happen for new chapters to unfold. And as David turned away from the door, he knew this was not the end of his story. It was only the beginning.